Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and I'm doing something a little different this video. I'm actually not doing I'm trying to not do a voiceover unless applicable. So what I want to do is I've got this Camaro, and I want to go and experiment. I use post-apocalyptic style builds. I know a lot of people don't like them, but I use them to experiment and try different techniques and different things that kind of translates over to customs. So what I want to do is I want to try some EVA foam. I want to try incorporating some Gasland style Warhammer type shit into this, and just kind of try different things. I've got some new speed paints that I got from the Army painter, and those are kind of like washes, but there's more pigment in them, and it's kind of designed for, well, some would say novices like myself when it comes to painting miniatures. But I want to see how that translates, and I want to kind of experiment, maybe use a little bit of it on this. And my goal is I started painting this little mini orc from Warhammer, and I want to kind of incorporate that into this. So right now I just got them stuck to the base, and I'm not going to show me trying to paint these things because I don't have the patience to sit there and try to hold it up, and those guys are on a different level than me, and I really don't have the patience, and you don't need to hear me swearing that much. So what I did is I already took this apart. I undrilled it. I'm not going to use the window, and I'm pretty much not going to use much of the back half of this, because what I want to do is I want to cut pretty much the trunk out. So I'm going to cut here and here all the way back, and I don't know if I'm just going to cut the trunk out or I'm just going to cut straight back. I'm going to try probably just to cut this out here using, I don't know, I'm really not trying to be precise with this, so I'll probably just use a Dremel with a cutoff wheel. So I pretty much want to open this up almost like a truck bed. So I'm just going to come down and hack all this off, and I'll end up hacking, I'm thinking, pretty much from this front seat. Oh, it's the only seat in there. From the seat this way. That way, this guy, I'm going to put a roll bar coming up, over, and down that this guy would possibly be holding on to. And he should, in a perfect world, fit in the back. And I know it seems kind of weird, and it probably is, and it's probably going to look like crap. But it is what it is. And I've got, let's see, I know these aren't Gaslandish post-apocalyptic style tires, but I have a hard time getting myself to put in really knobby off-road. I'm looking at this car as being a chase car. This is something that's just flying down the highway and scouting out what's up ahead. So there'll be minimal weapons. I'm probably going to put this brush bar on the front. I get some bigger tires for the back because we got to make it look cool. And I've got a tombstone for the back that I may or may not use depending upon how it fits and how much of this orc is in the way. And I got some bits that I've gotten from different places. I got a gun. So that's kind of where I'm at. So let me get settled. I'm going to cut this off camera, and then we can kind of see where we're at, what we have, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I cut this out. I stopped right above the bumper. I'll probably file this down a little bit more, but that's pretty decent right there. It does go in here no problem, and I did check to make sure that my little orc or goblin or whatever it is fits perfectly. So that worked out okay. I'm going to call him Fred. So Fred fits fine. So what I need to do is make a roll bar now that goes up like this. But before I do that, I have to look at my interior, see how that's going to fit, and I got to cut pretty much right there. So let me do that and I'll come right back. Alright, Keith, back at you. This is day 2. I had to put the casting in the citrus strip and get all the paint off. That's not a necessary step, but I like to do it a lot of times just so I have something to work with. I mean, for the most part, you can scuff up and paint right over, especially for like a Gasland style build. But, you know, in the end, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you do what you want. But because I'm experimenting with this, I want to try some different things. I got to finish cleaning this out, get all the gobbledygook out of here. Not that it matters, but there's some paints come off really easy, and some paints are a pain in the neck. So, you know, it all depends. So, I mean, this is pretty much what we get to work with. Like I said, I've cleaned this out, and I cut the interior pretty much right here, right after, a little bit after the front seat. So the next step is to get the wheels off, and that's not a big deal on these because it's a plastic base. You can bend the tabs, which I don't mind doing. It all depends. I'm using these. These are the backs, and these are the fronts, as I showed you before. The fronts were too narrow for this, so I've got some piano wire, 0.025, I believe is what it is. So I've got that. Let me get this out. So essentially all I do is I just kind of stick this underneath. Those pop off and go on the floor, or I'll never find them again. There you go. And then I just kind of stick this in and kind of go back and forth. I find that these tweezers work out pretty good. You could use a screwdriver, or if you're not going to use the tabs, you don't have to worry about it. So essentially, what I'm going to do, so now this fits in there perfect. So I'm going to put both wheels on here. I leave a little bit so I can crimp. Go back to the front, put this on, and then I'll pretty much just use this to mark what I want to cut, and I'll cut right there. Okay, so now I should, in a perfect world, I don't make wheels all the time. So what I can do is crimp the ends. Obviously I got to turn that wheel around. That's something you don't want to mess up. I just kind of take the very end and I just crimp. And that should, I wasn't trying to cut it. There we go. All right. So there's that. Then you can bend the tabs back over. I will probably not do that. I'll just take the tires off when I paint, but I'm not sure. The back ones, I believe, are also too short. So I'm going to have to do the same thing here. So I'll spare you the debacle that is. And I'll come back when this is all ready. And I actually probably will just put these back on because it's easy to take the tires off and on so I can paint and not get it on the rubber. So give me a second, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. So this is how the car sits. Obviously these wheels are bigger, which is fine. So I'm just going to take out, not that it matters because I mean this is just for show. It's not like if you wanted to use this for Gaslands or Car Wars or whatever, you wouldn't want it moving anyways, and it'd probably be on a base. But I'm just going to take just a little bit out, just to make it look a little visually better. So, let me try doing that. I get the burring tool. Obviously I don't care about the body, otherwise I'd be a little bit more careful. Okay, I can live with that. Alright, so now that that's all set, I kind of like the fact that it's a little rough looking. You can take the same deburring tool and you can scuff stuff up if you want. So I found this scoop. Instead of using the other thing, I'm not even sure. I cut this off of something at some point. I've had it in my collection. I think it's a scoop, but it is now. So I'm going to put that here. And then now I got to decide whether I want this, which I kind of want, or that. All right, let's go with that. All right, so now I'm just going to glue these bits on here. And then I want to get into some of trying that EVA foam for some armor, stuff like that. And let me get it all together and we'll get going on that. Okay, so I got the wheels mounted. I mounted the turret and the scoop. So now I need to make a base for Fred to sit on. I mean, technically nobody's going to see it really, but because I lost the post when I cut out the trunk, I do have some space in here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but so I'm just going to take a piece of this. This is kind of like a corrugated steel look, so pretty thin. It's not very thick. So I'm just going to cut off a piece. My usual way of not measuring shit. See if the piece that I have. There we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I don't think. That's good enough. I'll just cut it a little shorter. Maybe I can use that piece for something else. If I can find it. Yeah. So I'll just glue that in there like that. That just gives him something to stand on. And it fills it up, and maybe I can muddy it up, or who knows. So I drilled a couple holes in the rockers in the front. Or technically it's on the fender, it's not in the rocker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some sculpting wire after this is together. And I'm just going to make a quick exhaust. I don't know if it's going to just stick out, or I'm going to run it down like a side pipe, or straight up. I don't know. But that's pretty much there. So I'm going to glue this in. Then it'll be priming and painting. And I picked up some speed paints, as I said, and I also ordered the Army Painter Fanatic series, so whenever that's due out, I think it's this month, I'll get that in. So looks like I'm going to need a paint rack, because God knows I love a big rack. I have the corrugated base for Fred all done. Speaking of Fred is, as far as I'm concerned, Fred is done. I'm not a Warhammer painter, but this was all done with speed paints, and I put a little bit of blood because, you know, obviously he's hacking up stuff. But it came out pretty good for, you know, the minimal amount of effort that I put into this. Just speed paints, and then I did a little bit of dry brushing using regular paints, but not much. This was 95% done with speed paints. And I got to say, the pigment in those, as far as, you know, calling it a wash, is second to none. I really do enjoy it. So made things a lot easier. I've painted these before the regular way, and it was kind of a pain in the neck. So anyways, Fred is all set. So the base is all set. I drilled holes here for an exhaust. Like I said, these are mounted. I ended up where I had hacked out the deck lid. I made something here just to have something more secure for the tombstone, because I think I'm going to use it. So that gives me a nice solid flat piece for this to go to, whereas before this was all hollow, so there really was just the two corners of the spoiler for this to hit for me to glue to, so it seemed kind of sketchy. So I did that, and I'll glue that on next. And then what I'm going to do is when I prime this, I'm going to do it in two pieces. I'm going to prime this, and then I'll take the wheels off, the rubber, and then I'll prime this as well. Then put it all together, glue it, after I do a little detailing here and there. If you notice, I did a roll bar. What this is sculpting wire. I've mentioned it in the past. This happens to be aluminum craft wire. I don't know what size it is. I have two sizes. I've got that, and I've got this, which is a lot bigger. This is what I'm going to be using for my exhaust. This is what I used for this. I just drilled 2 holes, and you can literally just bend this however you want. It's really life-changing as far as when you're, well, I'm probably exaggerating, but unless you have no life. But it does help a lot, and it makes things, you get a lot of flexibility with it. You just drill 2 small holes, and you can pop it in there. I put a little baking soda underneath just to secure it, so stuff worked out really well. So before I prime, what I want to do is add some armor to this. So what I have is I have this big sheet, which probably doesn't look like anything on camera, of EVA foam. It's pretty thin, very flexible. It works really, really well. So what I did, right here, I already cut out something for the windshield. Now again, it's flexible. Once you prime it, it's going to harden up. So a little bit of super glue around here, and I got myself a nice armor looking piece. And what's good about it is, I mean, you can do this with really thin styrene. I have some .030 that works well too. But what's good about this stuff is you can cut it into strips. So, for example, what I want to do, get some super glue here, is I want to, you're going to end up getting this all over your hands, just so you know. So what I do is I get this piece of metal here, tin, whatever you want to call it, and a piece of axle rod, the piano wire, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here. Come on, there we go. So I'm thinking I want to wrap this around, if I can pick it up. It's the only thing, you gotta, if your fingers and your hands are dry, it tends to be a little bit of a pain in the neck. So I want this to kind of go like this, like it's a strap. So right about there is where I want to cut it. Right there. And then I'm just going to take this. I just do a little bit at a time. So I'm going to have it go like right here. A little bit of glue. A little bit of glue. And a little bit of glue. Once this hits, it's pretty solid. So I'm just going to take that, and that, hold it for a second. And it's pretty much done. And what I'll do is I get this, got these Q-tips that are to a point. Obviously I've used it for paint and everything else. Just kind of force it in there. Force it in there. Like that. And I got a sharp knife. And boom. Got myself a strap. And once I primer it, it's going to be very, very stiff and hard. It's going to be like styrene. It's going to be very easy to work with. So you can do that for that. I got some scraps here. So let's say I want something for, I'm going to do the windows off camera, but something for the windows. Let's say I want something here. So I can just take and do that. Do that. Now I have something here. If I want to rough it up a little bit, I can cut little notches in it. Easier said than done. I'm trying to do it on camera. Kind of a pain in the neck. But you can kind of notch out stuff. You can trim corners, so you can make some rough edges, in other words. It's really easy to work. Well, I'm not making it look easy, but it's really not that bad to work with. And like I said, I'll show you once I primer it how it really stiffens up, and you can paint it however you want. So take that and put it on. So you got a surface like this where it arches because of the door. It forms nice, and you don't have to, really go crazy. It sits. Now you can see how it sits flush. Once I press it down, there you go. So there's a lot of flexibility in here, and it's all up to your imagination as to what you want to do with it. Do this. It acts pretty quick, so the minute it touches the super glue, you have maybe 3 seconds. Yeah, I can't move it now. So you have to make sure it's where you want it. But other than that, that's pretty much it. That's the EVA foam. You get it at Michael's. I think I bought this on Amazon. It was like $3. Alright, so here it is before priming. I got the wheels off. Got all my armor on. And I decided to not put anything on the front. Nothing fit right, and it was more of a pain in the ass. So this is all primed. I ended up doing the base black, which the base was already black, but I just put a coat of paint on it to make weathering a little bit easier. So this, I made sure, when I did this on purpose. I put this upside down so that it's a little bit wider at one end than the other. So visually it's kind of weird, but I like the flatter surface on the top for more protection for Fred, because I don't want him to get hit. And I just figured this made more sense for me, for this particular build. So I got that. I made one side pipe. After I paint, I'm gonna put this on, I'll glue it, and then I'll weather it. So what I did is I took this thicker, I don't even know if this is a size on here, 2mm craft wire, sculpting wire, whatever you want to call it. And essentially, I'm just gonna trim that like that, roughly like that. What I did is, to get this end to fit in, I made the hole a little smaller. I just used my Dremel and I so essentially you're just gonna grind it down a little bit. I mean, or make the hole bigger. I just thought if I went too much bigger, it looked silly. So that allows that to fit in there. Then pretty much all I'm going to do is make a bend. There. So now I know where the bend is. I take my pliers. Pretty much do that. Stick that in. Just gotta, like so. And then I'm gonna cut it right about here. And then I'll just bend out the other side. So if you end up maneuvering it around, you can always flatten it back out again to whatever you want. I'll just take this. This is going to go like that, so that goes here. And I'm just going to give a little bit of an angle. And that's it. I got this Splash Paints dark aluminum. What I like about the Splash Paints is, A, it's ready to spray. All you do is shake it up, put it in the airbrush, and it's good. The second thing is it's a base coat, clear coat system. So when I put this on, it's going to just be flat, which is perfect. It's a good base for all the weathering. I like aluminum. I think it's going to look okay. Silver would work okay. Alright, so I have this kind of weathered. I put some yellow stripes here. I get some dry brushing for the spoiler. A little bit of silver. A little bit of silver on the rims. A little dry brush silver here. So this, I ended up adding a skull just because skulls. And I was experimenting on the inside with different effects just to see how it was going to work. Same thing here. So what I want to do first is I want to try to get all the details, and then I'll destroy all the details. So I like to use a variety of paints, and I've been really happy with a lot of the Vallejo stuff, and more recently the Army Painter stuff, obviously. So I'm going a little unorthodox. I'm going with the yellow headlights. I'll go with a little bit of red for the driving lights, or the inside lights. I'm going to use panel liner on the grill because that really just works well. It sits in the recesses really nice. And it's like it doesn't touch the raised surfaces at all. Excuse me, I'm coming down with a cold. So, this is one of those things I just do a little bit at a time, and I'm kind of winging it insofar as what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it when it comes to color schemes. And here I'm doing a black rear deck spoiler, or what's left of it, which is the two corners. It's the little details that makes a difference. And even though a lot of it may get covered up, some of it might not. And in the end, trying to do as much detail as possible and not just have it be one big pile of rust and grime. There's multiple styles, obviously, of painting. And this was one of those ones. It had a lot of detail on it, so I wanted to make sure I got all the detail. And what I chose to hide later on, that was, that's on me, based on how I feel at the moment and how the car is looking. So, but the game color stuff by Vallejo, that it covers really nice and works good on a wet palette, works good by itself. The metallics, I find you have to thin a little bit with water just to get them to flow better. Otherwise, they dry out real fast and get a little clumpy. So, but this black goes really well. And I'm just doing the gun backs and stuff like that. The scoop, like you saw, just little details like that, and slowly build up one little bit at a time, so I can kind of see where I'm at and what I'm doing. And make a call from there as I move forward in each aspect of the painting. Alright, so I painted some of the smaller bits off camera. I got a little bit of bronze here and here. This is what I use, the bright bronze. Then I used the gunmetal for the guns, the shell casing, and the bar across the window. I know it's subtle, and I'll be weathering everything, so everything's going to pop a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this skull. I'm going to use the speed paints I'm going to use this pallid bone, and not really sure what it's going to look like, but from what I've seen in the past, they work pretty well. So let's see how it does. Oops, get more of my brush there. This stuff is really cool because it just seeps into all the cool places, all the recesses. So what you can do is you can just, I mean, I had already, these are the Citadel skulls. I had them primed white. I've had them primed white since I bought them. I just took all the sprues and painted them white. So that's just I think it's Chaos White or something like that. So I'm just going to put this stuff on, making sure it all gets in the recesses. I'm going to let that dry. And then what I can do is I can take, I mean, that should look fine by itself, but to give it a little extra added pop, if I want, I'll be able to go over it with possibly like a white again, but just kind of dry brush the high spots, so it leaves the recesses but gets the spots that like the curvature of the teeth, the eyebrows, the nose, maybe a little bit on the forehead. That's just make it pop a little bit, just a little bit of depth, not much, but so that's really it for that. So it's a lot of cleaning the brush. I'm going to use this blue, and I'm going to hit some body panels. I'm not sure which ones yet. Probably the nose, the whole nose, like the nose got taken off another car and replaced, and then I'll come back and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with the doors and the rear quarters, the hood. I mean the roof. Probably whatever color this is, because you wouldn't, the A pillars and the B, that would all be the same color anyway, same with the quarters usually. Okay, so now what I did is I painted this all blue. I left the front fender, rear fender, the nose, and the doors steel or silver. I painted all the armor for the first coat with broadsword silver, which is the speed paint. Now I'm using some heavy gold brown, 72.151, and I want to hit the wheels on this, so I'm going to use a dry brush, or in this case a Michael's craft brush, cheap set. I don't use good brushes for this. Just let it build up. If you glued your tires, this might be easier. Just to get some of that black off, to make it a little bit less rubbery looking. Again, you just want to do it slow. You can build it up. See how you can, depending upon how aggressive you want to be. Little by little. And again, it's all about the details and taking your time. Slowly, every little bit, makes your eyes, makes it more, just makes it better to look at. You catch a bunch of little details. I still gotta go in and get some rust on the rims. I've already done the silver and some rust streaks here. Get a little bit more brush there. And that's really it. I'm going to be, when this is all done, I'll end up doing, a bunch of rust sand, you know, a little bit there, you know, around the wheel wells. Just like the wheels were kicking up mud at some point, but I'm going to put some texture stuff here. And, you know, this is pretty much at the point where now it's ready to start weathering. Right now, I just got all the paint on. There's no weathering whatsoever, except for what I just did here. And now I'm ready to get started. So now that I have everything painted, now it's just a matter of going back over stuff. I'm hitting the silvers with more silver. I know it seems kind of redundant, but I'm using the ammo, or AK, whatever you want to call it, the washes, the rust wash, the rust grime, the grime streak, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just slowly building things up little by little. And you know, it's a matter of layering. Not all rust is the same. There's new rust, there's old rust, there's rot, there's streaks. You know, you could go on forever. And, you know, this is one of those things where I'm just experimenting, seeing what looks good. And then I go back, I'll dry brush stuff just to give it a little bit of highlights. And, you know, it's all subjective as to what you think looks good. Here I'm adding some texture with the typhus corrosion from Citadel. That just kind of builds up a little bit of mud around the wheel wells and so on and so forth. This part of it was just really fun. It's relaxing, and if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong, you know? But, you know, if you like what you see, make sure you subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get notified of all future videos. So here's what we got. This is Fred riding shotgun in the back, no pun intended. And I don't have a driver for it yet. And that's something maybe I'll do down the road or whatever. I don't know, in another build. But this was fun. I like doing these kind of builds in between a lot of the heavier custom stuff I do. It allows you to just chill out and relax and have fun with no rules, no cares given, you know, and have fun. And you pick up things, you pick up new techniques, and you try things. Whether it works or it doesn't, you've learned something, and that's kind of the whole point of it. So stick around. I got a little bit more video here and some glamour shots, and I'll catch you on the next one.